rejected now. You're invisible, feeling like you're worse than dead. This has always been the outside. At this moment, you feel sorry for yourself.
We're so glad to have you back with us here in Sunrise. So lately, we've been talking a lot about the Easter season, right? Which beautifully coincides with spring, a time when both nature and spirit share a common theme, the new beginnings and rebirth. And just like flowers that bloom after a long winter, we too go through seasons of renewal, yeah?
Absolutely. Refreshing. Listen, sometimes that means letting go of old parts of ourselves in order to grow into something new.
That's right.
Joining us to guide us through this powerful process of personal resurrection is counseling psychologist and author Janelle Brooks.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yes.
When we have this conversation, the conversation about rebirth and renewal, let's talk a little bit about what we're talking about, because some people think we're going real far into something deep. Not necessarily, are we? Talk to me through it.
Well, I believe that there are times in people's lives where we are encouraged to change, to level up. I would even say forced in some situations to level up. And I think our mental health is one key area that we need to level up in at all times, our emotional health, right? So I think not all the time, like you said, it's this deep process that takes years and months. It could just be, you know, leveling up to a new position at work, and therefore it requires you to go a little deeper into yourself or to hold things back. You know, the way that you used to speak to people, you might need to be like, okay, I'm a manager now, I might need to pull that back. What's that about? You know, so every new season, every new position, every new level requires more of us. And then I do also believe that there comes at least one time in everybody's life where you have to do the deep work.
Yes.
You have to. I think you're at a position where you choose to do it willingly, or life will say, we are doing this.
That's right.
So what are you doing?
Considering what we are doing, I have a question, Janelle. In this Easter time, you know, many people reflect on sacrifice and renewal. How do you see this concept working in their lives today, relating it to sacrifice, concerning mental health, stuff like that? Talk to us.
So just to pull it back a little bit, so I think for the conversation purpose, we have to look at mental health, not just in terms of schizophrenia, anxiety, depression. It's just literally how you show up in the world and how you relate to yourself and how you relate to others, right? And how you respond to the challenges of life. And that requires some sacrifice at some point when you're leveling up. But I think I like to think of it more of surrender, even with the theme of Easter, right? Thinking about Jesus says he made the ultimate sacrifice, but he still had a choice, right? He could, halfway through the process, he could have been like, you know what? I'm not doing this, exactly. But he chose to surrender, and I think that is what is important when we're trying to change and grow and become better people, which I think we should all have a goal of becoming better every day, even if it's just 1%. And you have to surrender to the process. You have to surrender to your emotions, to listening to what they're saying to you, checking some of your thought patterns to see, are these healthy? Do I need to kind of change the way I think about some things? Looking at your life, past trauma that you might have gone through and seeing that you want to work through it and process it, because a lot of people would just kind of keep our trauma in a little box somewhere and we don't touch it. So I think just surrendering to the process of wanting to be better is very important.
You mentioned wanting to be better. You mentioned doing the work, even if it's just 1%. Let's talk about your book, Metamorphosis, because obviously it speaks about transformation. The Easter story of resurrection obviously connects with transformation in a literal way. But let's talk about transformation in the sense of the metamorphosis that you speak about in your book.
So just for context, I wrote that book. I started to write the book during the pandemic when everything was shut down and we were all by ourselves essentially and had to face thoughts and feelings that we would otherwise not. So I think my metamorphosis would have begun during that time. And after being a psychologist for so many years, I realized that people needed tools to help them in their own transformation. Not everyone is going to be able to go to therapy, but if you have the mindset that, you know, I want to learn more about myself, I want to see the areas that I want to work on a little bit more, I think the book is perfectly positioned for that, because every chapter speaks about real life issues, grief, heartbreak, dealing with disappointment, all of those things, but every chapter has an activity for you to do that allows for that introspection and the transformation to start.
And we talk about how hard it is to hold a mirror to yourself and be really honest.
It's rough.
But it requires it, doesn't it?
Yes.
If we're to experience true growth.
Yes.
Is it that therapy allows us a safe space to hold a mirror to ourselves?
For sure, for sure. Because I find that people are a little reluctant to share to even their close friends and family, because there's a fear of judgment. And sometimes the judgment really wouldn't exist, but we have a self-stigma about our issues, so we feel a little cute about opening up to someone. So therapy is a safe space, an objective person to just listen to you, and then provide you with some questions and some thoughts that allow for feedback and allow for that kind of introspection.
I notice you consistently, whatever question we ask, you take it back one step to just give us context. You like to establish context and perspective before you get into it. Which begs me to ask the question, is that an intentional part of the practice whenever you're walking someone through something, is that it's important to say, wait, put it over here. Let's talk about this isolated first before we put it into the whole. Is that an intentional part of the practice?
It is, because a lot of people have behaviors and thoughts that manifest in a particular way, but they have a genesis somewhere else. And oftentimes you don't always connect the dots. So, you know, as a trained therapist and you're outside of the situation, you're removed, you can see that a little clearer than the person. So you help to do that. And then of course with mental health advocacy, which I've been doing for quite some time as well, it helps to remove some of the stigma and to, you know, make things plain for people, because there still is the idea that mental health means depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, and it's really so much more.
Let's actually get a little bit into that, because if you feel a pain in your body, you know, and you say, no, but it's days not feeling this pain, you're going to go to the doctor and check it out.
For sure.
If you have an ongoing cough that is lingering, you're going to go to the doctor.
Make a move,
But then you know that you are not having the clarity of thought and mind that you usually have. You're thinking in a much more negative way. You're being hard on yourself. You're feeling absolutely burnt out. You're more irritable. You're more short-tempered. These are signs that maybe I need to have a conversation with someone who can help me with my mental health.
Definitely.
So I need to go to this doctor.
For sure.
How do we remove the stigma that people realize that it's okay, just as I go to my GP, to say, Janelle, I need to book an appointment, I need to talk.
Well, I think conversations just like this are a good start, and the more that we have them is the more people realize that, okay, yes, this is not so bad, right? I think putting the responsibility in the person's court is one thing, but I think when you have supportive people around you who can say, hey, I noticed as of late, you haven't been coming out with us so much. You've kind of been isolated. You're snapping at everyone, like you said. Is everything okay? Would you like to consider therapy? I've researched a list of therapists for you. I have so many clients who have been referred by friends and family members who they do the research and the legwork first, and then they give them a list and say, here are some people. I've already called them. Here are their costs. Just choose one.
Are these people normally persons who would have done it before?
Done
that
therapy?
Encourage that process to other people?
Not necessarily.
Wow.
Not necessarily.
They
just realize that their friend needs help.
They're a good member of the village.
That's excellent.
Good member of the village.
Some people will even pay for the therapy sessions for their family or friends.
I think what I would try to do, as I was telling you earlier about inviting people into the relationship, I think I would say that I'm going. And say how it was. Even if I don't share what's happening. I say, you know, I went, this is how it was.
And it's been so good for me.
So I think that raises a good awareness and remove some of the stigma. Because I know my friend said him go yesterday. I'm going to try to go next week.
Great stuff, great stuff. All right.
Our guest has been counseling psychologist and author Janelle Brooks, helping you to bloom anew. It's now time for a short break. When we return, more Good Friday Sunrise just for you. Thank you so much, Janelle.